Okay, I want to welcome everyone to this lecture presentation with Ashish George. He's with the state NAMI, and he is, I'll do a little introduction here. Um, Ashish is joined NAMI North Carolina in January 2020. He was drawn to the role and the organization because of his struggle with depression, which he has written about for the NAMI North Carolina blog. Ashish recognizes his efforts to improve public policy as part of his lifelong search for solidarity and community. And as a wheelchair user who knows the sting of feeling left out, he strives to make diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, a part of all NAMI North Carolina projects in which he is involved. So this is going to be part one. It's going to be the lecture format and of this presentation of PAD, Psychiatric Advanced Directives from NAMI State. And take it away, Ashish. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So today we're going to talk about Psychiatric Advanced Directives, PADS. So I'll be using a PowerPoint presentation. 1 second. Here we go. Can you see that? Okay. So this screen, hopefully everyone can see that. Can you see it, Karen?
Can't see it.
You can't see it? Let me see. What about now? Can you see it now?
You see it now. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I'm the Public Policy Director and DEI Manager for NAMI North Carolina. The training you're going to see today has been put together by lots of people who have been working on this issue well before I arrived at NAMI, including people at the Crisis Navigation Project, funded by the Duke Endowment, the Southern Regional Area Health Education Center, the Duke University Medical Center, Promise Resource Network, and Marvin Swartz at Duke. I want to give everyone credit because I didn't come up with this alone. No one does most valuable things alone. So I thought I would highlight that. And hopefully you'll get something valuable out of this presentation, which is about a legal document. We'll talk about what advanced planning and mental health is, how it can benefit a person who lives with mental illness and their family members and friends. We'll talk about what a PAD is, how to get what you need to know in order to create one. We need to know about conversations about crisis planning, because those conversations are the first step you have to take. Before you sit down and fill out the documents, you have to have some conversations that are very difficult about situations where you won't be in control of your own medical care, psychiatric care. And we'll talk about the legal aspects because, like I said, there's a legal document, and North Carolina laws differ from the laws of other states. So let's begin with this video, if I can get it to work. Hold on. Sometimes it cooperates. Huh. Let's see. One second, bear with me. So psychiatric advanced directives developed out of a movement to give people more of a voice in healthcare decisions. In the early 1990s, people were worried about people's physical health at the end of their lives. So we've all seen movies or TV shows where that has been an issue, or maybe you personally have had to deal with the issue of dealing with someone at the end of their life, and whether or not they would want to continue on life support or with prolonged treatment, even in the face of suffering and pain. So in the Patient Self-Determination Act of 1990, said patients had the right to make decisions about their own care and that they could express in writing those decisions. So this is called advanced care planning. It started around, like I said, end of life issues, and then it radiated outward toward conditions like mental health, including mental health. So even though some mental health conditions are not life-threatening, there are plenty of mental health conditions that will permanently take away your ability to navigate the world, navigate life, including dementia at the end of life, right? So that's a mental health condition. People who are not capable, which is a word we'll talk about later, people who are not capable of making decisions for themselves in a legal or medical sense, they can have their, they will have others make choices for them. But with this, with PADS, with advanced care planning, you can retain some autonomy in situations where you would otherwise be unfree. So I always tell people that when I make this presentation, what I'm describing is a way to stay free in a situation where you would normally be deeply unfree. In other words, a situation where other people would be making medical and psychiatric decisions for you. If you do something ahead of time, if you write down your intentions ahead of time, you can preserve some degree of autonomy, freedom for yourself in the future. There are two parts to a PAD: the advanced instructions for mental health treatment. And you'll see the North Carolina law in parentheses, or the statute. That's because, remember, there's a legal document we're talking about, not something you just fill out and hand to a doctor one day on a notepad. So it's similar to a living will. It allows you to document how you feel about medications, how you feel about various hospital admission policies, how you feel about consenting to or refusing care. So let's say, for example, you are strongly opposed to electroconvulsive treatment. Write that down. You can write that down in your advanced instructions. Let's say you've had a terrible reaction to some medicine in the past, caused you to grind your teeth at night. Okay, write that down. Say, these medications have worked well for me. These have not. I would prefer not to take this medication. I would prefer to take this medication instead. You can be as detailed as you want. And of course, what you have to draw on when you write down those advanced instructions is your past experience and your research. And by research, I don't mean like a 5-minute Wikipedia search. I mean a lot of time reading and writing. I mean, reading and talking to people around you. So research involves understanding your medical condition, where it's headed, what the potential setbacks might be. So understanding yourself takes time and effort, but it's worthwhile. The second part of a PAD is called the healthcare power of attorney. It allows another person to make decisions for you during a crisis. That person is called the healthcare agent. You can give them broad or limited powers. So you can say, I want my brother to be able to make decisions concerning my electroconvulsive treatment, to use that example I brought up a moment ago. Or you can say, I want my brother to have very broad powers. I want him to be in charge of hospital admission, taking care of the interplay between my various medications, how, all these things. But you want to be as detailed as possible. And of course, you don't want to surprise anyone. So make sure you talk to the person you're going to appoint as your healthcare agent ahead of time so that they know. You don't want them to find out all of a sudden, oh, I am in charge of this person's care. You can appoint more than one person as your healthcare agent. So as long as they're over the age of 18 and they are of sound mind, they're legally capable, they can be your healthcare agent. You can appoint more than one, but just make sure they're on the same page. You don't want your healthcare agents to disagree with each other and fight over what's best for you. You want them to agree about what's best for you because they have talked to you about it, ideally. And I know this sounds difficult. I know this sounds time consuming, but the alternative is to, fall into a very deep place with doctors. And we all know, unfortunately, a lot can happen in a psychiatric institution very quickly that you don't want to happen. Even with the best of intentions, doctors can't control everything. So, or they might not understand your condition perfectly. So, even though they're doing their best. So, the more you spell out ahead of time, the better off you'll be. If you have a healthcare agent, the more they understand on your behalf, the more they can advocate for you, the better off you'll be. Now, keep in mind as you listen to this presentation, you are not required to fill out a pad by any means. I just think it's a good idea to at least fill out one part of the pad. And keep in mind as well, if you move to another state, a pad in North Carolina is not valid in South Carolina. A pad in South Carolina is not valid in North Carolina. So you're not required to have a pad, but I would recommend filling out at least one part of a pad. So let's talk a little bit more about that first part of the pad. Like I said, you can be as detailed as you want about the advanced planning you make concerning the instructions for how your medical treatment is going to go. It kicks in, it takes effect when you lose the ability to make decisions, when you're judged to be incapable. We'll talk more about that word more in a minute, because incapable is not something you can self-diagnose yourself as. So in this part of the pad, the instructional directive, this is where the research has to take place, right? This is where you have to think about how you want medications to interact in your treatment. You have to reflect on your past experience. You can talk to people like your medical professionals, and be aware of your own body, your own mind, and your own future, your own goals. Here is an excerpt from the document. You see the link in blue. That's the North Carolina Secretary of State's website. You have to file the pad at the North Carolina Secretary of State's website. So it's not official until you do that. Any adult of sound mind can make a pad. You have to get it signed in the presence of 2 witnesses, not a relative, not your doctor, not staff of a healthcare facility in which you're a patient. You have to get the document notarized, and you have to present the the instructional directive to your doctor and other mental health treatment providers, right? So make sure all your medical professionals know that you have a pad, know that you have an instructional directive or a healthcare power of attorney filled out. You want them to know that you are taking charge of your own future treatment and writing down your preferences, right? Because like I said, a lot can happen very quickly in a psychiatric institution. So the faster they can consult a pad, the better off you'll be. You don't want them to not know. That could easily happen, right? Doctors for a moment could easily not know that you have a pad, and they could do something like give you the wrong medication that first hour after you've arrived, and something bad could happen. So you want to save as much time as possible by letting all the medical professionals in your life know that you have your wishes written down. So what is capacity? It's a legal term for when you have the ability to understand what's going on around you and make decisions for yourself based on relevant facts and considerations. When might a person lack capacity? If you have trouble with hallucinations, if you have trouble understanding cause and effect, if you're having severe language issues where words don't make sense to you, or you can't express yourself in writing or in speech, then you might lack capacity. Now, let's say you forget where your car keys are. Let's say you forget when your favorite TV show comes on. let's say you forget to buy milk at the store. All of these things are a sign of forgetfulness. They're a sign that maybe you need to work on certain mental capacities, but they don't mean you're necessarily incapable or that you lack this capacity to make decisions for yourself. Capacity is something that is judged by medical professionals. So don't self-diagnose. If a medical professional says you lack capacity, that's very different from you feeling bad about being absent-minded, right? So don't be hard on yourself. You only lack capacity if a medical professional judges that you lack capacity, judges that you lack the ability to make rational decisions based on facts and considerations. Right? So we already mentioned this. It's something a doctor has to let you know about. So don't let other people diagnose you in this way. Let's talk about the second part of a PAD, the healthcare power of attorney. This allows you to appoint someone to make treatment decisions when you are incapable or incompetent. Any capable adult, like I said, anyone over the age of 18 can be your healthcare agent. Ideally, your healthcare agent is someone you trust very deeply. It can be a spouse, a sibling, a child if they're over the age of 18. But just be careful about, how much they're willing to take on. If they have a lot going on in their life, they might not be able to do this, right? Here's an excerpt from the healthcare power of attorney form. And like I said, you can give them limited powers or broad powers. It's your choice. You can say, I want my brother to be in charge of a vast array of things concerning my psychiatric treatment. Or you can say, I only want him to be in charge of very limited issues. So your PAD only goes into effect when you're judged to be incapable. The finding will be documented in the medical record. And at this point, if you have a healthcare agent, they can make decisions for you. And then doctors have a legal and ethical obligation to follow your wishes. Does this mean the doctors will always follow your decisions? Well, we'll talk about exceptions in a moment. But we all know doctors make mistakes and are sometimes territorial. So that's all the more reason to have a healthcare agent, because that healthcare agent can make sure the doctor is respecting your wishes, right? And that the doctor is aware. The healthcare agent can hold the doctor accountable, right? Because even with good intentions, sometimes doctors are not great about respecting people's wishes. If you are judged to be incapable, you have to regain capability in order to change your PAD. You understand? So in other words, if you are judged to be incapable by a medical professional, in order to change the wishes you documented and filed at the Secretary of State's website and made official, in order to change that PAD, you have to regain the ability to make decisions for yourself. Does this mean that doctors will follow all the wishes of your PAD, even if you strongly object while you are incapable? No, it does not. So if you say you are in favor of electroconvulsive treatment in your PAD, but then while you are being treated and you're incapable, you say, no, please don't do this. Please don't give me electroconvulsive treatment. Unless the doctors think it's some kind of emergency, they're probably not going to force that on you, right? They're not going to force that on you. Probably. Like I said, it's another good reason to have a healthcare agent, just so they can observe, monitor, and keep doctors accountable. So when can doctors disregard what you've written down in a PAD? If something is not consistent with generally accepted community practice standards. So, if you ask someone to give you to amputate your arm in order to silence the voice in your head, a doctor is not going to do that, right? Because that's not a community practice standard. You don't need to amputate your arm in that situation. If a treatment is not feasible or available, so for example, if the FDA has not approved a drug, a doctor's not going to give you that drug, right? A doctor's not going to give you a drug that could get them in trouble. If there's an emergency, doctors are going to try to stabilize your condition, right? Their first obligation is to preserve you and your well-being and your life. So if a treatment request interferes with treating that emergency, doctors will ignore what you've written down. And if there's an involuntary commitment, so if you have been placed in psychiatric care, not because you have voluntarily gone in with a condition, but because you have had some kind of breakdown, you've been a threat to others or yourself, doctors will do their best to, again, stabilize your condition and to make sure you are better, but they won't have to follow your wishes in the pad because you didn't arrive at the facility of your own free will. And of course, doctors aren't going to do something that's illegal, right? They're not going to steal from other patients if you write that down in a pad. If you say, please make sure that I have all the food, right? Please make sure I have all the food from the other patients, or please make sure I have all the medications that other patients get, even if I have never asked for it. They're not going to do illegal things. But this is all common sense, right? There's all these exceptions are common sense. For the most part, doctors will act according to your wishes if you have someone to hold them accountable and if you have insisted that they respect your pad and if you make sure they're aware of your pad. So when you fill out a pad, what do you do with it? You share copies with all your treatment providers, file in the record of any medical facility you might go to, give copies to your healthcare agent and support people, and you take a copy with you when you access crisis services. Plus, of course, you store it at the Secretary of State's website. I would recommend carrying a pad with you at all times. We all have smartphones these days, so it's a good idea to have it on your phone. If you travel out of state, like I said, a North Carolina pad is not necessarily valid in other states, but it can still have value because if you have a crisis in South Carolina, let's say you go to Charleston on vacation and you have a crisis, doctors there might be more willing to accommodate you if they see you have a pad, even if it's from another state. They might not be legally obligated to do that, but they might be compassionate and ethically aware and therefore follow the wishes from your pad just because they want to be good people, right? So always carry a copy of your pad with you. Let's say you have a medical emergency and the police or an EMT needs to know. If you can point them to that on your phone or on your fridge, if you print it out and you have a hard copy, again, they might not know what to do, but they might be a little more cautious, a little more compassionate with you. They might give you more slack because they know you have written down the details of your psychiatric condition. We've talked about this before. You can revoke a pad at any time as long as you're capable. But if you're judged to be incapable, you can only revoke a pad once you regain capability. And make sure your doctors know, of course, if you revoke your pad. So if you have told your doctors you have a pad, but then you revoke your pad or you alter your pad, convey that information to your medical professionals. There's the link again to the North Carolina Secretary of State's website. This is a great resource, nrc dot slash not slash, sorry, nrc-pad.org. Lots of information state by state. So if you know someone in Wyoming who would really benefit from a pad and you would like to share this information with them, you can direct them to this website because it'll have information about Wyoming, which will be very different from North Carolina, right? The Crisis Navigation Project also has lots of valuable information worth checking out for sure. How do PADs compare to RAP and other crisis planning tools? So RAP stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan, right? Wellness Recovery Action Plan. PADs are complementary to them, but they're different. PADs are legal documents. Wellness Recovery Action Plans are about the little things in life that continue even when you're in a psychiatric institution or dealing with a medical issue. So a RAP plan is not official in the same way as a PAD, but it has to do with things that still need to get done. For example, feeding your dog, paying the plumber, picking up your grandson from soccer camp, right? All these things need to get done. If you suddenly have a psychiatric crisis, who's going to do those things? Who's going to feed the dog? Who's going to pay the plumber? Who's going to pick up your grandson from soccer camp? If you write down who you can count on, and if you consult with people, neighbors, friends, coworkers, you can make a plan for those things. You can make a plan for dealing with chores, dealing with household mundane routines that still need to be taken care of. It's good preparation for filling out a PAD because even though a PAD is a legal document and a RAP plan is not, a RAP plan still gets you thinking about who you can count on, what support you have, how much community you'd have, where you are in life, right? So if you thought a RAP, it's like making a list of chores that need to get done in the event of a psychiatric crisis. And then it's about consulting people in your life, friends, neighbors, coworkers, loved ones, who might be able to help you, right? So maybe your cousin can feed your dog. Maybe your coworker can come by and make sure the plumber gets paid. Maybe the neighbor down the street can pick up your grandson from soccer camp, right? That's part of a RAP plan, Wellness Recovery Action Plan. For more information, here are some websites. Of course, NAMI North Carolina's website has information about psychiatric advanced directives. You can also email me at ageorge@naminc.org. That's AGEORGE@naminc.org. I would be happy to help you fill out a PAD. It would be completely confidential and completely free. And if you have any questions or doubts, I can give you advice about completing a psychiatric advanced directive. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop